be surprised if, the big dogs are kind of looking and saying, we don't love it, but we love what kind of money this can make for us. We've seen it. I know one of my guys from, the music business, he sold his publishing for $15,000.
Wow.
Gold and platinum recording artist, man, and sold his publishing for $15,000, man.
You know what it is. The voice of LA, radio, and hip-hop and cultural icon Big Boy has been a pillar of the radio world for decades. He's interviewed some of the biggest names across the culture.
Snoop Dogg in the neighborhood.
Guess what neighborhood Big Snoop loves you?
Cardi B is in the hood.
So your ears are okay? You
My
preserve
ears
your
are
ear?
fine.
It's got to be because beats sound amazing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Thank
I'm
you.
just not
Thank
wearing
you
it
for
right
that.
now because y'all didn't cut a check. We're
Yeah.
going to make sure if we see it again, we're going to put up the
we'll call
footage
it
again.
out.
We're going to call it out.
That's why I never trust you, bitch.
I don't trust you either. If a dog and a pie cost had a race,
Ooh.
which one would win?
Ask that question again.
If a dog and a pie cost had a race.
A pie cost?
Yes.
What's that?
About $6. Thank you.
Hey, man.
And joining our neighborhood, Big Boy, how you doing?
I'm doing well, man. You guys made my show look very exciting. Man,
Your show is exciting.
I need to get with
So
your editing
everybody.
crew. Thank you so much, man. It's a pleasure to be
Hey.
here, Ari.
Pleasure to have you. You're starting out the right way. Shout out to the MSNBC and Beat editors and producers because they did go through your stuff. You talk to everybody. I've got to talk to you before. I'm thrilled to get you on the beat for the first time.
Hey, man, it is my pleasure, bro. And like I said, the next time we get down, we're going to have to make sure that we're kind of in the same room.
Hey, we went through pandemic, and here's my thought. We could start anywhere with you. I mean, we could start anywhere. I'm going to start with this. Remember in the beginning of lockdown, everyone was like, man, I cannot stay home.
Right.
Like, what are they asking us to do? And now, by the end, as the pandemic really wraps up in many ways, what are people saying? Man, I can't leave the house.
Yeah, man.
I can't go to work every day. Is that not human nature?
Yeah, and you know what's crazy? And it is human nature. And what's so wild is when we first got into the pandemic, I didn't feel like there was an expiration date. I told people, I said, you know what, man, we're going to have to figure out how to live with this as opposed to, us living without it. And we didn't know if it was going to be, are we going to be, we didn't take off. We were always here until, COVID started knocking down the crew just a little bit. But we were here. But it's crazy now because people are starting to move back into the building. And you do get a lot of people that's, I've seen people that I haven't seen in over like 2.5 years. I'm reintroducing myself to people. And there are a lot of people, bro, that's not ready to come back. I have a friend of mine, man.
Yeah.
She refuses to go back into the office.
For any great reason or just a vibe?
Nah, just the vibe. Just the vibe. You know what I'm saying? She's still doing her work. And, and then you can also work and get other things done when you're kind of at the house. And I think she's really kind of taking advantage of that. You know what I'm saying? Forget all the mental health and all the great things that she do for people that she need to be back at work and actually looking people in the face. But I'll talk with her personally.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. Like, both things can be true because there's reasons, there's safety, there's policy. I'm not saying the original capitalist system of making everybody run around all the time was perfect either. But
Right.
To go where we started, when you are face to face with people, I mean, you've talked to everyone from what we just saw there, 50 Cent to Michael Jackson. You are in the room with them.
Right.
How is that different for you when you want to really get somebody going?
Man, let me tell you, with my interviews and being in radio 28 years, bro, I love in-person interviews. So when the pandemic hit, man, and we started to do interviews over Zoom and everything just felt different. The timing wasn't right. Not having that vibe and feeling somebody's spirit and their energy actually in the neighborhood with you. It just felt extremely, I've never done anything like that before. And now, even as we kind of, where we are today and looking in the rearview mirror, some of the greatest interviews that we've had with Cardi B, Megan Thee Stallion, whatever it is that was over, Gunna, over Zoom, I can't watch those interviews because no matter how much people enjoyed the interview, it didn't have that same energy that I was used to, And I was thinking also, Ari, I was like, is this the way people want to do interviews? Because I had Cardi B on one day, right? And before we go and start the Zoom interview, you know, we're talking. She's talking about doing the AMAs and, you know, you got to come by, so on and so forth. And as we're talking, we get into the interview. Once the interview is over, her glam team comes over and they start working on her. And then she had another radio station. And I was like, ooh, that's very easy to do, man, where you just, you know, you finish one, they touch you up, you go right to the next one. And I was like, dude, this may be the world that we're living in. But they're coming back in. They are definitely coming back in, Ari.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this, like, because I study it. You know, I study the culture.
Yes, sir.
I respect the culture.
Yes, sir.
And that means I've spent time. I was watching so many artists in the room you're in right now, in your space, for years. And that's one of the great parts of YouTube. You know, we talk the internet in politics, the internet in personal life. Sometimes it can be a lot.
Yeah.
The internet in homework, in learning the history, it's amazing. So I'll watch your old videos. And that's why we have a little clip here when you were so lovely to have me in. When I walked in the room, I was like, this is that room. This is the room where the culture goes down. So here's a little bit, shout out, as you said, to the editors of the time you hosted me. Let's take a look.
It's like Rick Ross said,
Damn.
when the lights come on, that's when you see who the real guys are.
Damn. And I'm going to tell you, you just stumped me with that one.
Respect.
You just stumped me. I had everything else. Now I want to come with one back on him.
Hit him.
No, I'm old. You know. Hey man, but when you say are you study the culture, bro, you are the culture. I've seen you bring up lyrics that's not the single. You know, I'm like, man, no, this dude is listening to albums. You know what I'm saying? Like, this dude is if it was a actual wax, you were on the B-side on the 4th song quoting lyrics. You know what I'm saying? So no, you're cut from the cloth, bro. You can't fake what you do. Man. You can't fake and you can't study what you do, bro. You're from the cloth.
Thank you. That means a lot from you. And it's funny, you just made a really deep point, and you said it in a really clear way, which is some things you can fake, right? Mm-hmm. You could put on a doctor's lab coat and stand in front of a hospital for a photo shoot. And if all we saw is the photo, we might really have a hard time knowing whether you're a doctor or not, right? But specialized knowledge cannot be easily faked. So if you are in the lab with 2 doctors and you're in the fake lab coat and they go, let's figure out whether these are red or white blood cells, and you have to speak to them, they're going to know real quick whether you have specialized knowledge. Because you know what I would say? I'm not a scientist, big boy. I would be like, well, the blood looks red.
Right.
Yeah. They'd be like, he ain't a doctor.
Yeah.
And so in this culture, right, is if you care about it and you spent the time on it, other people who care about it are going to be able to tell, and people who are faking the funk, you'll be able to tell as well.
Yeah. And I mean, man, it's a knowledge that we kind of, you kind of have. If it's innate, if it's learned, whatever it is, but there's also a love for it, bro. And I can watch a red carpet, I can watch or see another interview, and I'll say, they missed that point, or they didn't know what that person was talking about. I hear it all the time, or there's just sometimes such a broad stroke, and when you see red carpet, sometimes you don't know everyone, but there's such a broad stroke that I'm like, they looked at the notes. You know what I'm saying? They looked at the notes. But I can tell with you, Ari, you're not a note guy. You know what I'm saying? You're like a know-it-all guy. Oh. Hello.
Well, footnotes. I mean, you say red carpet. Was it not Hove who said, monogram in my pocket off the red carpet? You see the face I made that night. The shit is that shocking.
Right. Hey, man, when did you fall in? And I know we had this conversation before. But when did you fall in love with hip hop? I'm not talking about like I kind of dipped my toe, because when did you fall in love? What was your introduction?
Yeah, I mean, you always remember your first, right? I mean, I went to Garfield High School, which I've mentioned to people. I went to Garfield High School in Seattle. It's Quincy Jones, Jimi Hendrix, rich tradition there. So as a freshman there, it was everywhere. It was what everyone was talking about. So that's what exposed me. Nothing better than learning from other people. I mean, that's the best way to learn. You can learn from a book. You can learn from the hard way and make a mistake. But when you learn from someone else, they say, I love this. Here's why. And you go, oh, I could love that too. That's what it was. And for me, the first album I remember getting, the CD, was The Score by the Fugees with the faces on the cover. And I'd already been interested in reggae and other things in Seattle, where I grew up, has a lot of different international culture. So that was around. But the way that album mixed that sound, Wyclef, Haiti, Afro-Caribbean, soul, and what was then East Coast rap, it hit me.
Hey, man, and with the score in Fugees, that is a great introduction, because the quality of that work and the body of that work was phenomenon from when you first heard it. You knew that, you know how people say, oh man, this is a classic. This is a classic. You felt and you knew that the score was a classic, and that the score was going to be one of those albums that didn't have an expiration date. You could always go back to it. It was so well produced, man. It was the themes, the writing, everything. Everything about the score was beautiful. And that's why I think the score got the accolades that it's still received, is because it was such a great body of music, man. And as you fast forward, there's just some things that you'll listen to and they, you know, time will tell, and they stand the test of time. Always. I can go back to
100.
the score today. What I do want to ask you, though, alrighty now, if there was a super group, 3MC super group, who's in Ari Melber's super group?
All right, I'm going to take two answers, because I was actually thinking about this the other day. For like right now, hot right now.
Right.
I would love to see a super group of Travis Scott, Drake, and The Weeknd. I think them on stage together, if they just made an album together, the way that Future and Drake already dropped a mixtape in 6 days or whatever they said, if they just worked together and then went on tour, the energy of that would be amazing. I'm thinking concerts.
Right. Yeah, you thinking stadiums. Yeah.
I'm thinking stadiums.
Yeah.
And you know how rowdy you could get, because for the folks who don't know, you were at one point, before decades of radio, you were security for Pharcyde.
Yeah, man. Rap group The Pharcyde, bro. They were the ones. I was already like a child of hip hop, and I enjoyed it, man. You know, I got into the game with like early on, you know, when you heard Rapper's Delight and you started looking for, you know, the Treacherous 3, Funky 4 plus one more. When you know, one of my favorite artists is, you know, Grandmaster Melly Mel. So when I got in, I fell in love with it, man. I remember me and my homeboy Trevor, we would walk to the boys club and we would take turns doing Rapper's Delight. It was something that was just new to me.
Right.
And I fell in love with it, man, and I wanted everything from it. I wanted to, you know, when I first heard them say she heard stories and she heard fables that I'm vicious on the mic and the turntables, I was like, what's a turntable?
Hey.
You know what I'm saying? So I got my turntables and I fell in love with it, man. And I would dive so deep into it. When I first started learning how to like scratch and cut, Ari, I was in my room and I would mix so much that my arms would hurt, because I wanted to learn scratch patterns and triple threats and what a dude by the name of Egyptian Lover called the 1,000 threat, where you go, it's time. I wanted to learn all that, bro. So when I got into the Pharcyde, as far as bodyguarding them, I was already like so intrigued with hip hop and being able to look at it from, you know, around the world. That was my first time getting a passport. That was my first time getting a stamp going out the country and watching how universal music really was, to be in London or in another country, wherever, and you're watching what some guys did in Los Angeles. You're watching how it affect people in different countries, bro. So being a child of hip hop and loving it, and then being able to experience it firsthand and looking at it from other countries and talking with people, it's been an amazing journey, bro.
I love that. And yeah, to learn that that's how you got in, and that exposed and opened doors, and then you go from there. So here we're having this parade for hip hop, big boy. And now I'm gonna do what we do in the news.
All right.
I'm gonna rain on this parade.
All right, rain on it.
I'm gonna play for you not just the old criticism, we've all been through that, but what's happening right now, people in positions of power, the mayor of New York, who's a former police officer, and others who are not just having what I would consider a fair, good faith criticism of some of the music. Because if you say, well, this line is hateful or that line is wrong, sure, let's talk it out. That's obviously fair. But I'm talking about something that goes all the way back to the 80s, which is the literal and figurative criminalization of this black-led art form for all the reasons we know. We put this together, and a lot of it's recent. Take a look.
It's not actually a form of music.
Walking around with his pants around his ass, they have encouraged people to be so different from the mainstream that they can't participate.
I had no idea what drill rapping was. We are allowing music, displaying of guns, violence. It is alarming.
Americans
Right.
are upset, annoyed, and looking for answers that a guy like Common would be entertained at the White House.
Prosecutors in Georgia will use art as criminal evidence in an upcoming trial.
This is why I say that hip hop has done more damage to young African Americans than racism in recent years.
As someone in this culture, what do you think of what has ebbed and flowed but is resurgent again?
Right.
These type of attacks.
You know what it is, Ari? It's so wild that we continue to have these conversations that, that's been coming up for, damn near, 30 years. We're still having these conversations, man. And I think if you take any form of entertainment, not just music, movies, whatever it is, and you do start to dissect it, you can hold it to whatever level that you feel like you need to hold it by to present your argument. And if that's what you're there for, I mean, you can go down any list and find something that you dislike about something. And once you find that, you could take that and totally blow that up. And I feel like that's what's going on. My thing is, when I grew up, and some of my first loves in music, I was always into lyrics, so on and so forth. But being from the West Coast as well, we had this thing called gangster rap, right? And with gangster rap, I think that my mom did a great job with, raising Kurt Alexander and raising this man that now as Big Boy. And hopefully I'm doing the same job with my kids. And of course, there are a lot of outside influences, and a lot of people do get outside influences. But if I have my son and he listens to Nardo Wick, and Nardo Wick can change my son in 3 minutes and take away everything that I've put in my son in the last 15 years, then most of that problem is mine. Can I blame it on the music? Of course I can use the music as a scapegoat. And of course I can say, but I got to be my son's role model first. My son has to champion his dad first. And not that this is for everyone out there. This is just the way that I feel. And my thing is, Ari,
Amen.
It's always going to be a problem. And when somebody like Geraldo Rivera, whoever, when they latch onto something, they're not going to let it go. I've seen this happen before, and this is not anything new. And I feel like we'll see it again. The one thing that we're seeing more so now that it has me a little bit concerned is now, we're starting to see you being prosecuted by your lyrics.
Right.
And that's what could be scary.
To jump in there, one of the clips we showed was colleague Joshua Johnson reporting on a case we've hit on the beat where, look, if you can prove that someone murdered someone, then let the process play out. We're against murder here. But if you can't prove that, and then not only can you not prove it, but you say, well, since we couldn't prove it, here they are in a movie playing the role of a murderer. Here they are in a poem talking about murder in their community. Here they are in a video game killing someone. I mean, I could show you fiction that millions of Americans engage in, whether they're the creator or the user, that relates to violence. I could show you people with Godfather posters. But as you mentioned, down in Atlanta, they're prosecuting 2 artists, Gunna and Young Thug, using their lyrics against them.
Yeah, and my thing is this, man, I don't know how people kind of get in the booth now, but they're also pulling up, they're pulling up receipts. They're pulling up yesteryears. And we do have to be careful. Can we be held accountable for what we say? I think there is an accountability. But when we put it under, this is entertainment, this is my life, this is whatever it may be. I mean, now if I get into the booth now as an artist, I would be more concerned about what they could do with my art now. You'll never see like a Tom Cruise. You won't see Arnold Schwarzenegger, whoever the action hero is that gets celebrated for multiple murders. And not that someone needs to be celebrated for crazy-ass music. I'm not saying that. But if it is an art form and everything is under the guise of art, then, you know, where does it start? I mean, where does it stop? We see where it's starting at. But where does that stop, and where does that line, where do we draw the line, and who's above the line and who's below and who's above the law as well?
Yeah, exactly. No, that all makes sense to me. Before we wrap up, I also was curious your take with so many artists you've talked to about artists who are able to sell their catalog. There's a lot of shenanigans around who owns what, but we've seen Ye looking at that. Ashanti, Irv Gotti recently did a big deal. He was a producer of artists. And here's one of the headlines. She also is re-recording a debut album so she can finally get what she says is her rightful restitution payment in coins. Shout out to Mario Brothers. My question to you, big boy, is all the legalities and the details are tricky, and it depends on each artist's situation. I'm wondering if a lot of the banks and hedge funds are coming in right now, putting up sometimes some big numbers, not because they suddenly got interested in music, but because they understand that we had records and CDs physical, then we had streaming digital, but we are about maybe to embark on a whole nother layer, the virtual. If this metaverse, these guys, the bankers, they go long term. If this metaverse is here in 5 years or 20 years, if it's a place where people are actually digitally walking around, you know you're going to want some music on.
Right.
In the lobby of whatever, the waiting room of whatever, your friend's house, whatever. But it will be a virtual sphere. And I'm wondering whether they're now more interested in buying this stuff up because they think they can still make up more money than the artists did in a new quote unquote world.
Oh yeah, and we've seen that it's not about the love or preserving, you know, hip hop or the art form or the culture or anything. We've seen that early on, man, where, you know, if you had the greats from Motown, how, you know, selling their publishing and thinking that in long term somebody wave a check in front of your face, not even thinking of the long term of how this music is going to survive and how it's going to continue to go from probably to, you know, to 78 to 33 to 45 to wax, then going to, you know, your 12-inch singles and going from 12-inch singles to cassettes and CDs and where we are, you know, now. So that music continues to survive and it continues to generate a lot of money. So I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, the big dogs are kind of looking and saying, you know, we don't love it, but we love what kind of money this can make for us. We've seen it. I know one of my guys from, you know, the music business, he sold his publishing for $15,000.
Wow.
Gold and platinum recording artist, man, and sold his publishing for $15,000, man. And right when he sold it, within the next 2 weeks, they got a movie that, you know, $50,000 easy, and it continues to go. And now this is before streaming. This is before everything. So, yeah, you do see the big wigs, and they do see what's around the corner. And when we hear these numbers, these astronomical numbers like $100 million catalog, $200 million, that is a lot of money. And it sounds like a lot of money today. But if someone's going to give us $102 million, and granted, somebody wanted to buy my Big Boys Neighborhood catalog, I'm really sitting down at the table. So this isn't about somebody being desperate or anything, you know. But if someone's offering you that, what is behind those offers? What's the long term? And I don't know anyone's deal. I don't know. Irv Gotti's a super smart guy. You know, I don't know what anyone's deal is, but I know that there's some people that say, you know what, I'm going to cash out right now as well. And when I cash out, I could do so much with what they're giving me that I can continue my brand as well. So we'll see.
It might be a personal choice. Yeah.
Yeah.
But was it not Cash Out? Was it not Cash Out himself, Big Boy, who said, got a condo on my neck, I'm cashing out?
Hey, man, for you to say cash out as well, bro, that shows you the card. Even Cash Out is like, Ari. Hey, man, before we wrap up, I do want to ask you this.
Yeah.
There's one night only.
Sure.
One night only, man, and you had to pick which show you wanted to go to. One night only. Kanye's in one building and Drake is in the other building. But you can only attend one concert. Whose concert do you go to?
You're doing me like that. I go yay.
Yay.
And I watched when they had their non-versus
right.
Larry Hoover show.
yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about the time, and people who watch the V know I quote Drake a lot for a lot of reasons. But that night, didn't that crystallize it, big boy, that they're different? And Drake is giving you an incredible, familiar sonic experience.
Right.
But Ye is giving you a rock and roll explosion.
Yeah. Okay. All righty. One night only. Jay-Z or Nas?
Jay-Z.
Jay-Z.
Without question.
All righty. One night only.
You have to answer any of these? All right, go on.
You know, my one night only, I would go and see, and it's crazy because I would see Kanye for my one night only because I've seen him before, and I just like the different energy that's in there as well. And I've seen him walk off. You never know what's going to happen at a Kanye show. So I'll go Kanye.
I'm going to hit you. Yeah, exactly.
Jay-Z.
I'm going to hit you with one, then you come back.
All righty, go ahead.
For you.
All righty.
Bob Marley or Sam Cooke?
Oh. Bob Marley or Sam Cooke? I would go Bob Marley. I would go Bob Marley because what I'm looking at Bob Marley, it would have to be like a festival. I've never smoked weed in my life, but I want to smell it. You know what I'm saying? I want to see the people. I would go to a full festival where Bob Marley was like headlining, bro.
Amen.
J. Cole or Kendrick for you?
Kendrick. And I saw J. Cole recently in New York, and I felt like it was like one of your best friends who does a lot of charitable work. He might have been in the Peace Corps. Like you would never run him down. He's like better than most people, but he's like, hey, I'm doing this spoken word thing at the cafe. Can you come? You're like, I'm there, man. And then you're there and everyone's like wanting to feel, you got to feel good about it.
Right.
You know, he was in the Peace Corps, but it was that energy.
Really? Eminem or Snoop Dogg?
Oof. Snoop.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. See, I've seen, if it was today, I've seen Snoop so many times. Snoop is like the person that I've had in the neighborhood the most. And Snoop is the person with him and Ice Cube I've probably seen in concert the most in my life. So if Eminem were to do something rare this weekend, Snoop will understand. I'll go see Eminem. Oh, hold on.
And then we'll do this again. We'll do this again because we do our conversations. In their prime, Aretha Franklin or Otis Redding?
In their prime.
Also tough.
Otis Redding, because I want to see the energy of Try a Little Tenderness live. Otis Redding.
Big boy, I feel like we tried a little tenderness here.
There it is, brother. We got a little tenderness.
Again.
We had a little tenderness, brother. No, I thank you, man.
I appreciate you, man.
Man, you stay magical, my brother. Stay the way you are. Superstar.
Hey, you too. Thank you. Big Boys Radio in the neighborhood.
There it is. Hello. Thank you, Ari Melber.